Welcome to this week's edition of America Decides. It has been a big week for the GOP with several wins as we move closer to the midterm elections. Today, Virginia's Supreme Court tossed out a new voter-passed congressional map that favored Democrats. The new map would have given Democrats an advantage in 10 House districts, leaving just one safe Republican seat. Joining me now is our CBS News political director and executive director of politics and the White House, our political guru, Fin Gómez. Here at CBS, the GOP, nice. As we've been reporting, the GOP had a big win when it came to redistricting in states like Virginia and Tennessee. How big a difference is that going to make in these midterm elections? Because typically the midterms are a referendum on the current administration, right? But with these new changes, could Republicans maintain the majority here?
That's a great question, Liz. I mean, look, this reversal by the Virginia Supreme Court is a huge blow to House Democrats. There's no sugarcoating that, and a big win for Republicans, and caps off a brutal 10-day period for the Democratic Party on redistricting. Remember, Liz, the U.S. Supreme Court recently ruled on the Voting Rights Act and significantly weakened its opening the door for more aggressive Republican redraws. Tennessee Republicans passed a new Republican-friendly map yesterday. On Thursday, Louisiana is on track to erase at least one democratically held seat, and there are Republican efforts underway in Alabama and South Carolina. So while these Republican redraws, while these wins could help stave off those expected losses in November, the president and Republicans are still facing really rough polling numbers. The president is underwater on most issues that matter to voters, like cost of living issues, and that bodes well for Democrats with 5.5 months until Election Day. So the House majority is still very much in play, Liz.
Now, Tennessee's Republican Governor Finn enacted a new congressional map into law that really carves up a majority black district in Memphis. The GOP saying this is all about politics. Democrats are calling this racist. What can those communities that got divided up do now to try to get better representation? Is there anything that they can do?
Honestly, their options are limited, and that's the hard truth for decades. When voters of color felt a map was drawn to dilute their voice, they could go to the federal court under the Voting Rights Act. But again, the Supreme Court just weakened that protection last week, so the door is mostly closed. So the NAACP is trying a different approach. They're going to state court, arguing Tennessee actually broke its own law by redrawing the map in the middle of the decade. Typically, those are done at the end of the decade. So for over 50 years, state law said you can't do that, and Republicans repealed that rule in the same special session where they passed that new map. Liz?
Now, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt is on maternity leave, and she has some really interesting subs. Marco Rubio held a press conference earlier this week, press briefing, I should say. Here's part of that went viral.
My hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly, but I think in the U.S., we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history, and ours is a story of perpetual improvement.
J.D. Vance, the vice president, also expected to have a turn at the podium. I'm curious, Finn, is this an opportunity for these two men to set the stage for what the presidential race potentially is going to look like in a year or so? Was this assignment on purpose?
Well, there's a rotation as Karoline Leavitt is out on maternity leave from cabinet members and senior administration officials. Again, it's still extremely early, but that Rubio performance absolutely accelerates the 2028 chatter, especially in this town, Liz. Rubio, who ran for president in 2016, looked like a candidate at the lectern. He was, fluent in Spanish, dropping 90s rap lyrics. He was pretty comfortable with reporters in the briefing room, and still on message for Trump. So some people close to Rubio have told me that they hope he considers a run, and he has last year, as recently as last year, he was asked about J.D. Vance and if he would run for 2028, and he essentially said that he would back him. But that was a year ago, and you did see this sort of split screen also, Liz. He was at the podium, and you saw Vance in Iowa rallying for House Republicans in tough races. What you did see was that even though it's in this early stage, you're seeing that these two are becoming these sort of formidable emissaries of the administrations and potential heirs apparent to the president and the MAGA movement. Again, it's still a long ways away.
Sure.
In this early stage, J.D. Vance is high in the polls, of course. Rubio has moved up. There could be more cabinet members jumping in by the end of this. There could be all kinds of other candidates. But there's been a lot of attention in the last few days since that appearance in the briefing room. And there have been people pushing him internally to consider a White House run.
All right, let's talk about an election that actually is on the horizon, the California governor's race.
Yes.
There was a debate this week in Southern California. There's another one next week in San Francisco. What's standing out to you with these candidates and the race itself?
Yeah, this is a fun one. I mean, for political geeks like me, right? I look. This is the stretch where candidates are really starting to make their closing arguments to voters. And remember, as you know very well, California has a jungle primary system, so the top two finishers advance to the general election regardless of party, and that changes the strategy entirely. What's standing out to me right now is the urgency of where we are in this race. Mail ballots are already in voters' hands. There's really no clear dominant front runner, and you saw that on the debate stage in Los Angeles last week. The candidates went after each other very pugilistically, often much harder than we saw in earlier matchups, and a lot of that fire was aimed at former HHS Secretary Javier Becerra, who's surged in a top tier since Eric Swalwell dropped out. The dominant issues in California, it's some of the ones that we're seeing across the country: affordability, housing prices, gas prices, the cost of living issues. And so there was more of that than some of the ideological fights you have seen in previous California debates or matchups. Yes, you said there's another big debate coming up in San Francisco. At CBS's own San Francisco, so which will absolutely be probably the best one. But there's growing pressure also on those lower polling candidates to create a moment that can really shake up the race before voting, before Election Day gets closer, Liz.
And Governor Gavin Newsom still hasn't endorsed anyone. Is he waiting for the top candidate to emerge before he puts his weight behind a person?
Oh my God, that's been the $1 million question since the beginning of this.
Yeah.
If he had endorsed, a lot of Democrats in California said they would have cleared the field. It wouldn't be this tight. You wouldn't see this sort of carousel of who's leading in the race. Their expectation is that he likely will not, but things can change. We'll see what happens. Right now, it's been pretty much a dogfight there in California, and really. If someone were to tell you today this person is going to be the winner, they can't really say that because it has been this fluidity in this race from the beginning. But for me, again, it's something I'm going to be eating my popcorn with on Election Day because it's one of the biggest races of the year.
Yeah, these debates have become must-see TV every single week to see who's going to go after who. It's really interesting to watch. Fin Gómez, thanks so much. Always great to talk to you.